we're going to go back up. We're teaching secrets from Genesis, and I want to bring something to you tonight that maybe you have never thought of before. I don't know. Maybe. It starts talking about Weyemoth. Say Weyemoth. Weyemoth means what? Brother Roger. Weyemoth.
And these names.
And he what?
And these.
And he died and stayed dead.
Yeah.
And he died and stayed dead. Weyemoth. And he died and stayed dead. That's, if you wanted, the 5th chapter of the book of Genesis is he died and stayed dead. Okay? Third person master senior, Cal, wow, consecutive, imperfect. He died and stayed dead. Now, the title of the message tonight, he's gone. He's gone. That's the title of the message, he's gone. Now, I want you to go here with me, and I'm going to read from the Amplified Bible, and then we'll come to verse 5, and then we're going to read it from Hebrew. This is the book, the written record of the generations of the offspring of Adam. Adam. What's Adam mean? Well, Dam is the root of it, and it means blood. God formed Adam as he formed the dust of the ground and breathed into him the breathings of lives. And where is the life? In the blood. The offspring of Adam, when God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. He created them male and female and blessed them and named them both Adam. What does Adam mean now? Also, mankind. Human beings. If you go to the Dakota, the Lakota, the Nakota, the Cherokee, any of the Anishinaabes, okay, the Navajos, all of their name means the human beings, which you could translate it Adams. They're all Adam. They're all human beings. That's what they were called, human beings. Adam at the time when they were created, and when Adam had lived 130 years, he had a son in his own likeness after his image. So he was 130 years old when he had this child, and he named him Zeth. Now, he's not talking about Cain and Abel, is he?
Right.
Because Cain was replaced, and Abel was killed. What does Abel mean?
Mist.
What?
Mist.
Mist or
Brief.
just brief, something brief, fleeting, going away. Verse number 4, and Adam lived after he had Zeth 800 years and had other sons and daughters. 800 years. That's 8 centuries. Now, 800 and 130 is how much? 930 years. What?
Did they trim their beards?
I don't know. 930 years. Now, verse number 5. Verse number 5. Why you call Yemei Adam Asher Che Tisha Miut Shana Yushila Shana Yushilashim, that is Shana. That Weyemoth there. It is the last one is my Weyemoth down at the bottom of the page. And he died and stayed dead. Just think about it for a while. So altogether, Adam lived 930 years and he died and stayed dead. There may be thousands of children on earth at this time. You realize it? Thousands of children that he had. Thousands of grandchildren. Thousands of great-grandchildren at this time. Thousands. And every day of their lives they saw Adam, didn't they? Did they? Every day they saw Adam. They could always go at him and say, Adam, Grandpa, Dad, whatever, Father. When you walked in the garden with God, such and such and such and such, they could ask him questions, couldn't they? But now he's gone. He's gone. In Genesis, the 4th chapter, we find out that God, or that Adam knew his wife, and they had a child, Cain and Abel. And they saw Abel die. They saw him dead. He was cut to pieces. Abel was cut to pieces. Brother Ray, have you ever seen anybody cut real bad with a knife? Yeah.
Like from one side of the shoulder to the butt.
Yeah. Cut to pieces. Blood all over. When I was a little boy. Now, when I was a little boy in near Bakersfield, California, it was a lot of Okies out here. A lot of Okies fled Oklahoma and came to California. Now, my family fled Oklahoma because they couldn't get a break back there because they were Indians. Anytime they had something, it's going to be taken away from them. So they came out here to be mistaken for white Okies, and so they could buy a piece of land and keep that land. If you've read Shadow of an Indian Star, you know that they started back in Mississippi on great plantations. And the plantations were taken away from them. They went into what became Pauls Valley, Oklahoma, named after my great-great-great-grandfather, Smith Paul. It was called Smith Pauls Valley. And my family had 5,200 acres under plow and under fence, behind fences. And thousands of acres of land for grazing with cattle. They sold $10,000 worth of cattle a year that they were grazing off of this land. They sent Fred Wade out to Lincoln County, New Mexico to go in partners with John Tunstall. So they had so many cattle, they said, well, we'll send them out there and we'll have double. Smith Paul and Sam Paul were very smart. And we have Tom Waite. We had the Waites, McClures, and Pauls all together sending them out there. When they got out there, the Irish gangs had come into New Mexico, and they killed John Tunstall, another Scotsman. Well, Fred Waite, you know, organized the regulators, they cleaned house and went on back home. They killed Sam Paul in 1891, December the 18th, 1891, because he was about to circumvent and go around the Dawes Act. And Indian territory would have always been Indian territory. But they got people against him and had his own son kill him. Murder, 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 murder. My grandfather on my mother's side was full-blood Cherokee Indian. He was killed near Lawton, Oklahoma in 1905 because he wouldn't sign the Dawes Act. My grandfather saw his father shot with a shotgun and cut his legs off and bled to death. Blood, blood, blood. Sam Paul, when he was in that restaurant, his son came in there with that lever-action shotgun 12-gauge and shot him in the head. And blood was all over. And then he walked over there and shot him in the heart one more time, and blood was all over. The human race is a bloody race. Shedding of blood, shedding of blood, shedding of blood. Killing people. What causes that killing? When Adam and Eve partook from that tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that was God's tree. And they ate it all up, we know, because that was wild, consecutive, and perfect. They ate and they kept on eating and eating and eating. Now, Daddy, Adam, is he your daddy? We have none other. As in Adam, all die. As in the second Adam, all are made alive. The first Adam gave us blood. And you, fathers, give your children blood. And through that blood is the infection of sin. Now, you've had your father all your life, haven't you, Vincent? He'd been there all your life. When you grew up, he was there. I mean, when you were, first thing you remember, you see your dad, don't you? First memory, way back. You remember the first time you ever remember seeing your dad?
No, I don't remember.
It's that he's always there, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I was always in the back of him.
Yeah.
That came years later.
But he's always been there, hasn't he? One of these days. Now, children don't always outlive their parents. But one of these days, he won't be there. And it'll be a loss. But, Raymond, you don't have 1,000, 10,000 descendants, do you? Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Adam having thousands of descendants, and he was always there, and now he's no more. He isn't there anymore. He's gone. They cannot go and ask him any more questions, period. Now, I'm going to get back here when we go up here first. When we get back to the 10th man from Adam, which is Noah, we're going to go all the way back there, and we're going to see how low they were when Adam died. A lot of them saw Adam. But now, why you most? He's dead and he stays dead. They can't ask him any more questions. They don't see him. And now they are absolutely faced with death. With death. Natural death. Natural. Not a bloody death. But the man quit breathing and he died. He quit breathing and he died. We see this. They're reminded all of a sudden that their life is brief, even though he lived 930 years. You know, 70 more years and he would have lived a millennium. That's 1,000 years. 930 years. And he died. 930 years and he died. Do you have any questions here so far? Did you learn? Did you think about something brand new? What a shock to Adam's family. They heard that they were going to die. Everybody's going to die. Now, we don't know how long Eve lived. And what does her name mean?
But don't say he's the first person that died, does it?
Well, the only one we know died so far is who?
Recorded.
Abel. The only one we know died and recorded as dead is Abel. That's it. Nobody else. I don't know whether Eve died before this, but what does Eve mean? What does her name mean, Brother Roger? Living is her name. Chaya. Eva. Now, she was the mother of all dying, wasn't she? But Adam chose to say that she was the mother of all living because he believed in the promise. But now, the end has come. He's no more. He's gone. Every day, they could go look for him all they want, but he's not there. He's gone. No longer there. Now 5 and verse 6. By the way, I taught this November the 14th, 1977 at CMBI. That's a while back, wasn't it? The last time I taught this. Washi, Sheth, Shamesh, Shanim, Yumiath, Shana, Wayeled, Et Enosh. And he lived Zeth. What's Zeth mean? Zeth mean. What does Zeth mean?
Means substitute.
Substitute. Who was he actually a substitute for? You know that they had him because Abel was murdered, but who did he replace?
Cain.
He replaced Cain. He didn't replace Abel, he replaced Cain. Because Cain was going to be the patriarch. But he threw it away with bad living. That's all you can say. Bad living. That, substitute. Shamish 5, Shanim years. Shanim is years plural, isn't it, Brother Roger? Yumiath and 100. Shana years. And then it says Wayeled. And he begat and kept on begetting for himself Et Enosh. Enosh means what? No, Enosh.
Oh, Enosh.
Enosh. Dying. Means dying. Phew! How fitting. How fitting. Dying. Dying. Now they're faced with death. They're faced with death every time because guess what? A lot of people are beginning to die now. A lot of people are beginning to die. There are funerals. And he's gone, and she's gone, and he's gone, and she's gone. How many people have died so far? Who knows? But there are funerals. Adam lived 930 years. And now other people are beginning to die, and they begin to see dead people. And they begin to see the results of sin. The end results. James says, when sin is conceived, and when it is fully matured, what is it? It's death. 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 Did they sin? What is the Hebrew word for what they became? What is it? And they became, and the serpent, he became Arum. What does Arum mean? Wicked, deceitful, deadly, death-dealing, lying, perjuring, cheating, stealing. It all means that. It means all of those things. I'm taping all my books together because they're falling apart just like their owner. Seth lived after the birth of Enosh 807 years, it says in verse number 7. Seth lived after the birth of Enosh 807 years. Seth was 105 years old when Enosh was born. 105 years old. 105 years less of life. 105 years closer to Wimioth. And he died. Let's go on. Waichi, Yesheth, Ashereh, Holedo, Et, Enosh, Shiva, Shanim, Yushimone, Mioth, Shana, Wayeled Banim, Banoth. And he lived after his begetting, Enosh, 7 years and 807 years, and he begat sons and daughters. Now we're going to see what it says in the New Testament. Death reigned. Death reigned. Death is beginning to reign, isn't it? Death is becoming very familiar with all these people. They're familiar with people stopping to breathe, and they listen to their chest, and there's no more heartbeats. They're familiar with this, death. And every time somebody dies, they should have remembered Adam sinned. Mom and Dad sinned. And we only can come to God one way. We have to offer a sacrifice. The sacrifice. What was the sacrifice? That some innocent lamb had to die for your sins. How many of you ever had anything to do with lambs much? Brother Ray? Yeah. They're pretty innocent, aren't they? Innocent. They don't know, they're skittish, they're scared of everything that moves, but they're very innocent. Sharon said something to me the other day that just blew my mind, and I didn't even say anything to you about it. It just jarred me. Talking about my mother. And people, when they get old, they're innocent as if they were children again. They lose their ability that they had before. Now, I don't think this happened right here. I think this is a modern degeneration. Possibly old Adam was as bright in mind as the day he was created until God stopped his heart and ushered him into eternity. Look at that. I don't know whether it was cancer yet. I don't know whether it was staph infection yet. Arterial sclerosis. People are living a long time, aren't they? I don't know whether there was a common cold yet or the flu virus. These things are mutated, sinful life forms, aren't they? Mutated, sinful life forms. Brother Roger, I heard you had this pneumonia. That's a mutated, vicious life form. Marilyn, you had pneumonia here a while not too long ago, about probably the same time you did, maybe. That's a mutated life form, and it's death-dealing. Sin is a mutated life form, and it bites us all, doesn't it? It bites us all. Why you? Kol Yemei Sheth, Shatim, Esrei, Shana, Yutisha, Mioth, Shana, Wayamoth. And became all the days of death. Now here we have Adam. Now we have Zeth. 210 Shittim, 210 Eseh years, and 900 years. 210. What's 210? That's 12. That's 912 years. Lived 912 years. Wayamoth. And he died and stayed dead. What's the oldest person you ever knew in modern time?
I met a lady once at Roosevelt's 113 years old.
113.
She was amazing.
What?
She was amazing. She was completely
All there.
with it.
Yeah.
113?
113. There was people, there's one man that goes back in England that I believe was 175 years old. And the king was so amazed with this man that he had him taken to him. And then he went over there, he went back home and died. It was such a shock to him, I guess. The king wanted to see somebody 175 years old. Marilyn's aunt, I met her. How old she lived to be, 103 or 104? 104 years old, meaner than sin. Ornery. Hateful. She took that Adamic nature to the grave. But Wayamoth, she died and stayed that way. We see that. I haven't, in modern times, I haven't seen anybody in my family make it to 100 hardly. I don't remember anyone that made it to 100. My mother will be 93.
My dad's aunt in Denmark lived around 107.
Yeah. Some long-lived people. But one thing about it, we're all infected with this virus of sin, and it all is going to bring us to death. Period. Let's look at this again and read over it. And Zeth was 105 years old, and Enosh was born. And Zeth lived after the birth of Enosh 807 years, and he had other sons and daughters. And Zeth lived 912 years in what? Wayamoth. And he died and stayed dead. And when Enosh was 90 years old, in verse number 9, that's the one we're coming up to. When Enosh was 90 years old, Canaan was born to him. Let's look at that in Hebrew now. Waishi, Enosh, Tishim, Shana, Wayaled, Et, Canaan. And Enosh lived 90 years. Look at there now. That's an old age today, isn't it? 90 years. And he's having kids at 90 years old. At 90 years old. And he begat Canaan. Canaan. Now, we have Cain, don't we? That was a bad boy. Now we have the repetition of that word, and what does that word mean? It means gotten or possession. By the way, Luke 3:37 and Chronicles, 1 Chronicles 1 and 2 record this same event. These people actually live this long, people. They really live this long. These are real years. Have you ever thought about that, Christina? These are real years. These are 360-day years at least. Now, they counted in the Old Testament years as 360 days. Did you know that? How many knew that? Okay, 360 years. And that's how they figured out when the Messiah was going to come and all that, 360-day years. So we have an extra 5 days in our years, don't we? But then we have leap years and all of that. What's the difference between their calendar and our calendar? What are they called? The lunar calendar, and we have a what? A solar calendar by the sun. Theirs is by the moons, and ours is by the sun. They say ours is more accurate than theirs was. But the American Indian did not count by the sun. They counted by the moons. What's his lunar calendar? So many moons. Not suns, but so many moons. Many people in the world counted by the moon. Now, you'll see this other thing in some of the interpretations of this is that the sun gods and that the solar calendars were right out of hell. Did you ever hear of that before? This is wicked and all that kind of stuff, but because God always counted by the moons, lunar calendars, not the sun calendar like the Roman Empire did. The Greek Empire and all that. That doesn't mean anything to me. It just means that these were years. These were at least 360-day years. That I want you to understand. These years were not months. They were real years. Waishi, verse 10. Waishi, Enoch, Ashereh, Halado, Etkanan, Shamesh, Esrei, Shana, Yushimone, Mioth, Shana, Wayeled, Banim, Yuvanoth. And he lived. He kept on living. He kept on being alive. That's what it means. He kept on being alive. Marilyn, you've kept on being alive. When I married you, it's 20 years ago, I didn't know it, but she wasn't supposed to live 5 years, and she's lived 4 times more than what she's supposed to.
Yeah.
She kept on living.
I didn't find that out.
Didn't find it out until about 7 or 8 years ago. And the doctor looked at her chart, and he said, "You're supposed to be dead." I'm going to tell you something. You had some help. I kept on taking her to the doctor and doctoring her and doctoring her, doctoring her, doctoring her. She said, "I'm her best nurse and best doctor." Well, I tell you what, it took a lot of doctoring. The first year we were married, she had pneumonia 3 times. She was supposed to be dying of this stuff that she had. Well, she's still dying with it. I'm still dying with the cancer, still dying with the poisoning and everything. I had another blood test today to see if I had any elevation in the mercury and arsenic counts with my heart all messed up like it is and everything. My eyesight's a little better, but I can't see anything up close. I can see out yonder, 2015 vision. That means I can count the hairs on the buffalo's nose, out there at 200 yards. But I can't see anything up close. And I'm going to tell you something. This stuff up close is really important to me because this is the Word of God. I have to wear these spectacles, see? And he lived Enosh. Enosh means dying, doesn't it? Page 60, Brown, Driver, and Briggs. Just look it up. It means dying. And Enosh, after causing to beget Canaan, 510 years and 800 years. That's 815 years. And he begat sons and daughters. Now all of these people, they don't intentionally beget these people to die, but they're all going to die. There's none of these people alive today, except who? Enoch. The only one that didn't die. Out of all of them, Enoch, and who else is the only one that didn't die? Elijah. What's Elijah mean? Huh? God is God. Elijah means God is God. God is God. Is he? God is God. When we look at Jesus, yes, God is God. And what does Enoch mean? Enoch. Enoch. Teacher. The Word of God teaches us how to die. Did you know that? Teaches us how to die. Watched a movie one time called Lonesome Dove. Do you ever watch that movie, Lonesome Dove? What a movie was it? And that old boy came in among them, and he was a scoundrel, wasn't he? But he was their buddy. He was a Texas Ranger one time. And he got caught up with the wrong crowd, didn't he? Then he went out and started killing people and burning people, doing bad things, robbing. He didn't want to do it, did he? But they'd have killed him if he hadn't. Of course, he didn't do it. He didn't kill anybody. He didn't do any of that. But when it came there, the two captains said, buddy, you were with them. You should have either killed them or left. When you run with them, you got to die with them. He looked at it. He said, well, I'd rather be hung by my friends than my enemies. And you know what? He was sitting on that horse, and he spurred that horse, and they didn't have to hang him at all. He hung himself. And they said what? He died good. He died good. He died good. The American Indians, when they every day when they wake up, they say, this is a good day to die. Because death is always before us, isn't it? Death is always before us. This is a good day to die. I've ever said that to you, Marilyn? I've said it a lot of times. I wake up, boy, in misery and everything. I said, well, this is a good day to die. That's my Indian background, you know. It's a good day to die. Oh, felt like I'd die. And I tell you what, this last time up in Nevada, a couple of days up there, I didn't think I was going to get here. I thought I was going to be dead before I got back. And many times when I was poisoned with that arsenic and mercury, every day was a challenge. I didn't know whether I'd wake up the next day. I remember going in there, and Jennifer Salicito, doctor for Dr. Dio, I went in there, and she listened to my heart, and her eyes, tears are coming down her eyes. She said, Mr. Phillips, you're dying. And I don't know why. You're dying. Your heart's beating between 30 and 120 beats per minute. It'll go drrr, and then stop. Drrr, stop. Drrr, stop. When I was up there, my heart would beat boom, boom, and then miss. Boom, miss. Boom, boom, miss. Boom, 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 miss. And I can know that every time. And every time it reminds me of one thing, I'm going to die sometime. I don't know whether that's the time or not. But what do you know? Will you die well? How do you die well? How do you die well? How do you... What?
Probably by living well.
By living well and by doing what you want, the Lord wants you to do that day. Dying, doing what God wants you to do. thinks that Brother Andino had a stroke and died when he was preaching. He's in the 90s. In the 90s. He died while he was preaching. I had a stroke. Marilyn was there. Roger, you weren't there yet. I had a stroke when I was preaching. You know, I almost quit preaching when that happened. I almost quit preaching. I got up and I was preaching, and this one woman was sitting there, and I could see her, and I thought I was talking okay. I weren't. I wasn't. I wasn't talking very well. I don't know what I was doing. Probably blah, 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 or something. I don't know what I was saying. I thought I knew what I was saying. Brother Mike, were you there? Maybe you were. I think maybe you were. I don't know. What? David Reimer was there. And Bill Hawkins was there. I had a whole classroom. There's probably 100 people in the class at that time. I was in one of them big classrooms in the big new building. And I went on for about 30 minutes talking like that, I guess. And this one woman got up and walked out. She told my wife, she says, he's supposed to be a scholar and he can't even talk.
Yeah, she said that.
He's supposed to be a scholar and he can't even talk. I was having a stroke. I was trying. If I'd have died that day, I would have died well. Did you know that? And all of a sudden, I got to where I could talk again. I didn't know that. It just came upon me, and I just started talking and finished the class for the last 10 minutes or whatever it was. And everything else, and then people come up and talk to me. Jim, something happened to you. Something was wrong.
But you didn't hear that.
No. I thought that I was talking normally. And that so terrified me that I would be up in front of people and die like that I had a hard time getting back in the pulpit the next time. I went out here in the backyard one time. This is all from chemotherapy and cancer and radiation and all that. I went out there in the back, right there by that dog pen, and I bent over to get something up. When I stood up, I didn't know who I was. Gone. I came in the house and started babbling on and saying things over and over and over and over again.
I wanted to take you to the hospital.
Yeah.
You wouldn't go.
I wouldn't go.
You forget who you are, but you remember you're stubborn.
Yeah,
That didn't go away.
Oh, I'm okay, he says.
I'm okay.
I always thought that.
If I was on the ground or something, she could have taken me to the hospital. Told Sharon one time, you about saw me dying. And she said, let me call the hospital. I said, no. I said, if I end up on the ground and I don't start breathing, I said, call the hospital. And she sat there with me for 30 minutes, and my heart was just barely going. That was when I was poisoned with arsenic and mercury. I think you were in Nevada. I mean, not Nevada, but Alaska.
Where?
Yeah, I think you were in Alaska at that time.
Oh.
Anyway, Dakota had stayed with me. And anyway, that would have been a good day to die. I was doing what the Lord wanted me to do. That's good. That's good. Doing what the Lord wants you to do. If you died when you were doing what the Lord didn't want you to do. I'm reading a book right now. It's a very famous book. It's called Pilgrim's Progress. Are we all pilgrims? You know, what John Wayne used to say, come on, pilgrim. We're all pilgrims, aren't we? We're all going through this life of continuously dying. Dying daily. Paul said, I die daily, didn't he? Put my body to death every day. I keep closing this book, and then I have to open it back up. And Enos lived after the birth of Kenan 850 years and had sons and daughters. And verse number 11, and Enos lived 905 years and Wayamoth, and he died and stayed dead. Boy, this is a book of death right here. This chapter, the 5th chapter, is a book of death. And he died and stayed gone. He left. He's no more. 5 and verse 12. Waichi Kanan, Shivaim, Shana, Wayaled, Et Mahalel. And he lived Canaan 70 years. And he begat, and kept on begatting, Mahalalel. Mahalalel. What does Mahalalel mean?
When he dies.
Huh?
When he dies.
Mahalalel. 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 This is not Methuselah. This is Mahalalel. It means the splendor and the glory of God. The splendor and the glory of God. He gave you a good, real good name, but you know what? I don't care how good his name is, he's going to die. Don't care how good his name is, he's going to die. He might be like Eve, Havah, the living one. And she died, William Oates. 5:13, Wachi, Canaan, Asherah, Hawaled, Halado, Et, Mahalel, Abaim, Shana, Shimone, Miot, Shana, Wayaled, Banim, Yuvanoth. And he existed. And he kept on living. Canaan, after his begetting, causing to beget Mahalalel. God is splendor. God is glorious. It's kind of like the word Muhammad. Did you know that? The glorious one. Muhammad, the glorious one. And nobody should have that name. The glorious one. 40 years. 40 years and 800 years. And he begat sons and daughters. Sons and daughters. Now we have Adam, earthy, we have Zeth, substitute, we have Enosh, dying, we have Canaan, possession, and we have Mahalalel, the splendor of God.
The only lady they mention is Eve.
Right. Only one worthless missing, you know. Ladies are a lot of trouble sometimes, you know. Well, they left them out, didn't they? Because ladies were property, weren't they? Women were nothing but property at this time. Property. Same like sheep and cattle. Aren't you glad that Jesus Christ gave you women some equal standing? Aren't you glad that God gave you some equal standing? That you're important to Him? That you can't be bought and sold like cattle? Or put to death, as they do in the Islamic religion, because your husband don't like you anymore? Put you in a prison? You know how many women are over there in prisons because their husbands got tired of them? And they accuse them of something and they have no way of retaliation or defense at all. Thank God, women, for what the New Testament gave you.
They were the ones.
And Christianity. Christianity is the religion that ended slavery. It's not Islam because they still have it. Catholicism had plenty of slaves. We have two state religions there. 5:14. Wayuyu kol yemei Kenan eser shanim Yuthisha miot shana wayamoth. Here it is again. And this old gent lived 910 years. And he died and stayed dead. Still, we got over 900-year lifespans of the recorded ones. Now, how many of them lived 800 and 700 years? We don't know at this time. That were contemporaries with him. 5:15. Waichi, Mahalalel, Shemesh, Shanim, Wishishim, Shana, Wayaled, Eth Yered. All right. And he lived Mahalel 5 years and 60. Look at that. How many years is this? He's a young man when he has a baby. He's 65 years old. Now that see if that rejuvenates my throat. In America, you retire at 62 and 65 years, don't you? If you make it on Social Security. Social Security really works. I'm going to tell you something, people. If it wasn't robbed. How many people live 5 years after they go on Social Security? How many people live 1 year, 2 years? How many people live less than 10 years, but how long do they pay in Social Security? All of their working lives. Think about that for a while. It's a pretty good system if there weren't thieves out there. But that thievery is part of the Adamic nature, isn't it? At one time in America, we had people that, when they went into office, public office, they surrendered their time and they got no recompense whatsoever. They didn't want to stay in that public office very long because it's taken away from their living. But it was a sacrifice. Now it is what we call pilfering. You know what to pilfer somebody is? It means to rob them. They get up there and they get the best health care. You don't have health care like that. You couldn't buy health care like that. They get the best health care with the best hospital. I'm not telling the truth, brother. They got the best. And you got the worst or none. The worst or none. Now we're pilfered because of the Adamic nature. It's society. Society. He's a lawyer. And do you ever hear somebody feel like he's a lawyer? I was in someplace the other day, and I was dressed like this, and with a hat on and all that. I went into this place, and this guy kept going around. He shook my hand. He said, "Boy, you look real nice." I was a little bit afraid of him because I thought maybe he was one of those other kind of guys, you know. He came up to me after a little while. He said, "Are you a lawyer?" I said, "Boy, I didn't want to look like that." I'm a professor and a pastor. That's what I am. I'm a teacher. Oh, okay. Took off. Wasn't interested anymore. Lawyers have got some. You know what they call themselves? Esquire. You know, that's a royal title. And almost all politicians are lawyers. Problems, huh? Professional thieves. Professional liars. Professional thieves and professional liars. In the old country, you might say, in England, when you're a lawyer, you have to take an oath. And that oath is that you will not defend as innocent any client if he's guilty. Because your allegiance is to the country, to the people, not to that client. Boy, this would be a better place, wouldn't it? You got any questions?
I'll say one thing. God picked Mary to have Jesus, so that was an ace in the hole.
For women. And I'll tell you something else, women. Not any sin nature was ever passed through you. It's through the husband. All right? Because it comes through the blood of Adam, not through the blood of woman. Do you have any questions? Brother Mike, you got a question? Brother Roger? Uda Mia? Nothing? Yes, Christine.
If you just clarify again for me, you said you said women were property, so we're thankful that Jesus came along?
Christianity.
Christianity.
Christianity is that which gave women rights. Christianity is that which, or even Christendom to some extent. Why, the Catholic Church was always okay with slavery, wasn't it? One thing about the Baptists, they didn't have slaves. And in America, there were more Indian slaves ever than there were black slaves. And there were many Indian slaves in what you call Indian schools. There's nothing but what you call reform schools, supposedly. They were supposed to make them non-Indian. Kill the Indian, not the man. That was the motto. Kill the Indian, not the man. We see that through that, but even to the Protestant Reformation and to Baptist influence in America and in England, we got rid of slavery. Now, in the South, the Southern Baptists were all slavers. They had a very perverted, twisted idea of the curse of Cain and the curse of Ham, that all black people were supposed to be slaves. And another thing, when Abraham Lincoln was president, when they asked him, if you're going to franchise these Indians, that means give them the right to vote. I mean, these black people, if you're going to give them the right to vote, are you going to go ahead and give women the right to vote too? And he said, oh, God forbid.
Not going to go that far.
No, not that far. Guess what? The first state in the United States to give women the right to vote was Wyoming, because they didn't have very many. They were happy to have a woman. Happy to have women. There weren't very few women to go around there. So America gave women right to vote. England, we see my great uncle was John Paul Jones. He was sold into slavery by his family. And he was sold into slavery to work on a slave ship going between Scotland and Africa, dragging slaves back and forth. And he went on one trip, and all of the white people, all of the officers on the ship died, and he had to navigate the ship back to Scotland. And they freed him. They gave him his freedom. And he had used the blacks as sailors. And from that time on, they began to use black people as sailors. And what was wrong? Why did they all die? Because they all got malaria. That Latin, that means bad air, but it wasn't bad air. It's Anopheles quadrimaculatus with the vivax infections, which was very prevalent over there in Vietnam. Well, we see all of this. Slavery. He hated slavery. He wouldn't go on any more slave ships after a while, after he paid his debt. We had one American president that was a former slave. And it wasn't Obama either. Who was that? Andrew Johnson. That was a former slave. That's why he was so hard on the South when Abraham Lincoln was killed. He wrung them out. All right, did I answer your question a little bit?
Part of it. So, when God made Eve, did he make her to be property? Or that was because that was before sin?
That was before sin, but she was taken out of Adam, and he was still the head of her. So she was supposed to look to him, and he was supposed to watch over her, wasn't he? Mm-hmm. Did he do his job? No. He didn't do his job, did he? All right, and then from there on, as men and mankind slipped into the depths and the mire of sin, we see more and more of it. We see more and more of it. I'm going to read Pilgrim's Progress and record it and put it on the website sooner or later, if I can do that, if I can hack it, because that is a great adventure. Have you ever read it?
I've never read it.
It's pretty neat. I read it to my children when they were young. All right, is that all? You got any more, Christina?
That's it.
I don't want to leave you undone here. Let's have a word of prayer and go out there and do something eternal. Sharon, would you lead us in prayer?
Father, we just thank you with gratitude that we have the privilege to come and gather and learn your word and sing your praises as loud as we want to, Lord. And we just lift up all those who are living in circumstances where they can't do that. And I ask that they be freed. In Jesus' name, amen.
That's